Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 21st. And we can see that softness here where we were looking for the grain here to break above cyan hasn't done so yet, even off the initial dip. And we kind of figured this would be soft without, getting a decent reset of steel coming back underneath. So you have short-term buyers that are continuing to softly fade, but still decent rise in the red DOC, which means we're likely to hold around these supports. Right now we're right back at that 50% line, just kind of hovering right there. We finally got the crossover on the shakeout on that, but it's still negative. So it had the opportunity to move positive, but it rolled around. So it's going to be that next tick up of the shakeout that will probably produce the move, and so you're going to have that declined A, B. This is the C leg of it, but if it is able to catch a little bit of support, we're right at that key inflection point right there. So intraday signals on that are going to be critical, I think, in determining whether we move forward with this or not. Just from a practical standpoint, our expectation when you get this kind of fall off on the red DOC, you'll get that brief little up and then it'll come down and do it again. What we're looking for is that second higher pivot. That one will have more sustainability from a long side. Until then, I think that you're still at a soft spot that looks to have some decent support to it. The NASDAQ a little bit different here with the just slightly under the 50% Marcanacci lines right there. And you can see never quite had that solid crossover. So this is really keeping any upside strength from really taking hold. So it's the divergence between the two where we were in sync right about here. It's separated just after the pop move that came through and never got a follow through at all. And so that's the drag that's going to prevent things from getting hot and heavy, so to speak, but it's still providing decent ranges intraday. This continued collapse of the euro, well within our expectations, exactly what we were looking for to retest back to these lows, and I think potentially make a new low going forward. We'll see if that's able to play out like that. We finally dipped below the red line. Might be a little early on that move, getting into an oversold category, so maybe we get a little support bounce off this before it breaks down, but still lower shakeouts and everything's continuing on that phase of it. And that also doesn't help the S&P because it impacts exchange rate, something we've talked about previously. Gold just supporting right here at this particular spot. Nothing special about this. We just had a short-term buyer pop in was enough to hold it, but still with the dips below the red line, not looking for anything substantial from that standpoint. So if we look at from the intraday trade, so we ended up with the series of buys that took place down at the bottom. We got above the 50%. Right at that point, we ended up with that first DOC spread coming off of lower peak reds, even though we're above zero. So you're still cautious because you got a reset of the steel. Comes back up, but immediately, and this is the beautiful one about it, you moved back above the cyan, and then boom, crosses below with the DOC spread, the rejection of cyan to green. And that's happening all the way, though, at the lows. But it's indicating that you're going to get a continuation, of course, with the steel coming from below. I'm watching for that crossover point. Doesn't happen. Stay below the 23% line, and I'm just waiting for some kind of reset to take place. And what happened was we started with the initial pop right here, took it to the 23%, but wasn't enough to sustain it very long. In fact, it kind of rejected right about here if you were playing it from a little quick trades. Certainly rejected right there, but then you've made higher red DOC, and then it pivots up immediately, putting in this series of X's, and that's what leads to a new 100% level. Got up to the 100% there, declining 100%, and then turned it around right up to the peak, and just a little bit of noise going through this period until we get a clean rejection, green. And again, this is that same perfect steel comes below, above the cyan, crosses back below it. At the same time, you're getting a rejection of green to cyan and red DOC, this time below zero. I'm expecting this one to have a bit more oomph to it. Sure enough, goes all the way to the zero. No reset of orange on that little pop, so you know that that's not likely to sustain itself. In fact, you can add to your short as soon as you get this kind of separation literally right here. If you wanted to wait another one, you could do it again. All happening right at that 2845 from previous algo level, and sure enough, just pops right down. No reset of the steel, so I wasn't looking for anything too dramatic until unfortunately that it pops above plus 13.5, which is the equivalent of it coming from underneath, and that actually is kind of spark I look for, particularly coming off this extended DOC shakeout red here. And you can see that it crosses over, even if you waited the extra bar to get that full 2.5, more than appropriate, because you already had green over cyan at that particular point on the immediate move. That's usually a strong indicator that you're going to have more of a follow through with that. Now it rejected pretty darn quick right here. The problem was you ended up with no real follow through from that, and it kind of just stayed stagnant going across. Still would have worked from a short standpoint, but it just would have been, you know, boring nothingness as it just stayed kind of elevated. You had these little dips, looked like things were going to get attractive, but no serious breakdown in the red DOC. And then you started with the gold rising right at that 50%. You always got to respect that. So even if you had decided to take a little bit of the short from this kind of move, it clearly faded itself pretty darn fast from that standpoint, and that's what's produced a little pop. We ended up with a little DOC spread that happened right here up near the 100%, which we always like. And this reset doesn't look to have properly dipped with the orange below, so imagine you're going to try a little bit, but should retrace, be looking for a move back down to that 2845, and a little positive extreme. Oops, didn't mean to move that. It's just trying to get the number right there. Is the positive extreme off this bar, which is just below the 45 algo level, 44.75. So any retest right back to that would just fill that right back into place. So that's kind of what we're looking for at this particular point. But ranges, gotta like them. No objection whatsoever. As always, though, if anything unique pops up, I'll be around, so I'll be able to update things and get some charts out there if conditions warrant. Let me just expand that, make it easier to see. Trade well. We'll talk again later.